Okay, so starting off with adding the 3 primer colours, the yellow, the blue and the red. And then we're going to mix some yellow in a palette. Make sure it's nice and bright. You don't want it watery because this is on a colour wheel and we need to see what the colour looks like. Okay, so nice and bright, plenty of it. And off we go. So we go to number 1 and we paint that segment. So you want to start off at the top, take your time, and just, this is like a flat wash. Okay, so just go from the top down to the bottom. That's the easiest way for me. And try and keep it all nice and even. This is the nice bit. So keep the colour nice and clean. And then paint that. So we're going to try and do the other wheel at the same time. Let's see how we get on, because I think it's easy if we do that. So this is a segmented wheel. If you haven't got a segmented wheel, don't worry, just watch. So this is the other wheel as well. Okay, so you have to really focus this morning. Make sure you've got no distractions in the background. We've painted number 1, and then what I want you to do with the same colour, I want you to move on to the other segmented version, and on the top one, where you've got number 1 on there, I want you to paint the top section. Okay, so that's exactly the same colour, and we're going to paint that. So what we're going to do with this segmented one is we're now going to rinse the brush out, and we're going to make this lemon a little bit lighter. Okay, so just rinse your brush out and then just paint a slightly paler yellow in the next little segment. Okay, so we're going to be reducing the colour each time we move down. So we're going to do that with all the different colours, but we might as well do it as we've already got the colour mix. Okay, and the final segment will be really, really pale. So what we're looking at is how the colour starts off nice and bright, and as we water it down, at the end I only need to add a tiny bit of water, and then we're just making it lighter on the paper. Okay, so they're really little segments, but try your best to keep it inside there. So that's the first one done. Okay, so we've done the segment there, and then we've moved on, we've done the bright one, slightly lighter, and then even lighter. Okay, how are we doing? If you just put your thumb up if you've done that, then I can see how you're getting on. Yep, so you've got one segment and you've got the other segment. Okay, so we're going to rinse your brush out now. Okay, so it's nice and clean. And then we're going to go into the red, pink. Okay, we'll do exactly the same with that. So we're going to mix a little bit of water, take some of the colour from the tube. We want it nice and bright, so make sure it's just the pink on its own and it hasn't got any traces of the yellow. So you have to rinse your brush out. And then what I want you to do is go to number 5. Go to number 5. We've just mixed and red. We're going to number 5 on your segment, and you're going to paint that. So you make sure that you paint the right segment. So number 5. So this is with the red. So you've got 3 gaps in between, which is exactly what we need. Just get the paint. Now you want it nice and thick, the paint, so you can actually see what the darkest pigment looks like. So can you see mine's nice and bright? So you don't want it watered down. Oops, it's splodged everywhere there. Hang on a minute. There we go. So what we're doing is just going to splodge my paint. Right. Okay, so paint that. So it's number 5, and you're painting that one in the red, or whatever you've chosen. I've just got to spin it around a bit just to get to the angle. So spin yours as well, just so you get a good angle to paint it in at. It doesn't matter which brush you use, just use whatever's comfortable this morning for you to be able to paint the segment. So keep the 3 colours out so you remember what they are, and then you're going to have to write them down on the side. Write them down on the side. Okay, so you come to number 5 on here when you're ready, on the segmented one, and you paint that first one as bright. This is the outside edge. Paint it as from the mixture that we've just mixed. And with this second segmented wheel, what you do is you keep diluting the colour. Okay, so I find the easiest way to do that is by just adding a little bit of water on the page first, and then you'll automatically make the colour lighter. You don't need to mix a light colour in the palette, just sort of make it lighter by adding water on the segment. So when you make it lighter, you can see a lovely pink colour as well. And then the last one is even lighter than that. So that's nearly just water, to be honest with you, with a tiny touch of the colour. Make sure that you can see the difference as you're painting the segmented one, because then that tells you what the colour looks like when it's been diluted. We call these values of the colour. So you need to understand how to get something light and how to get something dark. It's after each colour, you need to make sure your brush is clean. Okay, so make sure you check it on the tissue try and get rid of all the initial colour. And then we're ready to put the next one in. So on number 9, we're going to do the blue. Okay, so you mix the blue up in the same way, nice and bright. Make sure it's nice and dark just for the segment. So it's number 9 with the blue. We'll just spin it around. Just to put paint so that you can see. So you go to number 9 on there, and then you go to number 9 on the corresponding segmented one, and you do the same thing again. Okay, you start from dark, and you take it, keep adding a little bit of water to it to make it lighter. So I have to make sure there's plenty of mixture in there and plenty of paint in there, so you can see this colour at its full strength almost. And I'm using phthalo blue, just in case anybody's wondering. These here, and you can see them actually. These are the 3 colours that I'm using. And then the second segment will be slightly diluted. So just dip your brush in the water, and as soon as you do that, it starts to lighten it. Making really light work of this. But once you've done it, you'll be so pleased because you have a really good reference of a little bit of understanding of colour. And then as we paint every week, we can reference the wheel. And then as I talk to you about it, you'll understand how the whole thing works. We'll try and do this as swiftly as we can this morning, and then you can always have another go later, you know, if you want to make it neater or whatever, but at least then we'll get all the colours done. So try and, you know, get the hang of it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to mix the orange. Yes, so we're on number 3 in this segment, which is in between the yellow and the red. when we mix the yellow and the red, we're going to get a nice orange. So what we want is a true orange. So you probably want, let me just spin this around so you can see it. So at this stage now, what you may have to do is, you're okay for the moment, so you could use that yellow that we mixed there earlier on, and then all what we do is we add a little bit of the red to it. You see, don't know what your palette looks like, and you instantly get a beautiful orange. So it's like a 50-50 orange. And then that you paint into number 3. Let's paint number 3 in that. And the more you do this, the more natural and easy it becomes, and it becomes a real breeze to mix colours. We just mix some of the basic colours first. These are what you call secondary colours, what we're painting now. So initially we had primary colours, which was the first 3, and these are now secondary colours. Okay, so you've got a nice bright orange. That's just how you would observe an orange. Okay, so you get that colour, and then you go to number 3, the corresponding segment, and then you do the same thing again. Okay, you go in and you put the bright colour in first, and then you go lighter into each segment. Beautiful peach colour when you dilute this. It just trains you to see how the colour you start off with a little bit of water soon becomes a different shade. And try and get the final colour as pale as you can, okay, just with a hint of colour, so there's a real difference then. Make sure when you look at them, they look different. Okay, so there's that colour one in there. So these colours that are in the tubes are so bright, and that's the first thing I noticed when I had them manufactured. It's just so easy to mix colours with it, because sometimes you get, you know, even an orange is tricky to mix, but with this one it just makes it so easy to do because they're highly pigmented, and it's the binder that's in them. It's the vegan binder. Okay, so what I want you to do is make sure you've got enough of the orange that you just mixed, like I'm just topping mine up. And then what we need to do is, where number 2 is, if you look at number 2, can you see it's near the yellow? Yeah, here's number 2, it's near the yellow. So in this orange mixture that we've got, we need to add more yellow. So what will happen is it will make it lighter. Okay, so it'll make the yellow lighter. I'm trying to keep this yellow clean, which is always difficult, but you can always squeeze a bit more out. Just for this sort of process, you do need to keep the colours clean. Right, so nice and bright. And number 2 is going to have more yellow in it, and then you'll see this beautiful yellowy orange. Okay, so all what you do is that's how you reference it. You just see where you are on the wheel, and when you buy yellow orange, this is what you buy in, and you can already mix it. You know, you just got to know how to mix it. Sometimes it's good to buy ready mixed colours if you're going to use them a lot, but you know, you've got to learn how to create them. And you can always make a big batch of it if you're going to do a great big sunflower or something and you didn't want to run out of the colour. This is like behind the mechanics now, behind the scenes, understanding how to colour mix. Okay, so once you've done that, you go to your number 2 on the other side and you start to create that segmented. So watch you don't put your hand on anything that you've just painted. So you just got to be a little bit careful there. Okay. And then when you've done that, what happens is when you get to number 4, I know you're still painting, I want to explain to you how I'm doing this so that if I move on, and because it's recording, then at least you know what I'm doing. So when you get to this orange, you go back to that orange there, and then you add more red to it. I mean, you can see that, can't you? Because you're next to the red, yeah? Does that make sense? Is everybody okay with that? So you've still got the orange, and then all what you do is you add more red to it. And then you end up with a reddy orange. We'll just go into tube a little bit. So I'll start to put mine in. And that's how the whole thing works. Every time you're next to the colour, you just put more of that colour in. A little bit more red. Make sure you've got a good colour change. You know, there should be a difference in the colour when you paint it. And if there's not, just go and add a little bit more of the red or whichever one you're trying to lean against, okay? So this is leaning more towards the red. So it becomes an orange red. So if at any stage you need to remix something, just clean that little well out. If you're running out of palette or well, just clean it with a tissue and then start the mixing again, okay? Sometimes it's easier to start again with a mixture if you've gone wrong. I'm not saying you have, but if you have, it's easy just to wipe the well clean and remix it again. And straight away, as you start to look on the wheel, you can see all the beautiful colours coming through. With the second one, all what I do is I dip it in water. I'm trying to push it back in. You just have enough paint that you need to paint that little section, especially when you get to this little one. You only need a tiny bit of paint. I found that if I move down the brush size, I'll just control the water. That's looking good. Yeah, I love doing this. I told you I love doing this. I'm trying to keep it tidy, and that's not going to happen, but it doesn't matter. Just going to blob here, but it doesn't matter. Okay. You can see that evolving. And then as you're painting away, I'm going to get to number 7, and I'm going to do the red and the blue, and that will give me a violet, and that will go in 7. Okay, so go to the blue, add some red to it. And this is all experimental. There we go. So, like you say, you get a nice violet, purple, and then you put it in the middle. Into number 7. So the reason why we've numbered them is so that you know exactly, because it's so easy just to start painting a segment that you think is close, but you've got to have the distance even. Just bring this around a little bit. When you see it on the camera, it looks really dark, but it's actually a really nice violet colour. And then I can go on to 7 here. And I can do my 7 in here. And hopefully you're starting to get the gist of this. Oops. Try and keep it in the lines the best you can. Don't worry too much if you go out, because you've got the template now, so you can do this over and over again until you get it to as neat as you want it. Right, in the next one. Also, what I do is I just dip the brush in water, and it just takes off some of the paint, but it keeps them on as well. And I get this lighter shade of it. That's also what I've been doing, just dipping it in the water. Okay, so You have the same purple mixture. When you get to the red side, you add more red to it. Okay, that's what I'm going to do now. So we get to the mixture again, add a little bit more red to it, and then off I go again in number 6. So also, if you're getting a little bit behind, also what you're doing is checking to see which box you're in, look what colour's next to it, and then you know that you have to add a little bit more of that colour. So here in number 6, I've added a little bit more red to the violet that I already mixed. And that becomes red violet. Beautiful cerise pink colour, so pretty. Just spin it around. And losing. When you look at the colour in the palette, it looks, you know, similar to what you've mixed previously, but when you apply it onto the paper, you can see the difference. And the palette that I've chosen, the 3 colours I've chosen are more suited to florals. So it's what I would use in my botanical palette or anything that you want that's going to be bright. And then as we move on with our colours, I'll introduce 3 more colours that will then give us different blends, but I'll do that later on once we understand how colour works. Depends what your chosen subject is. I'm just moving on swiftly now so that I can get this done. So in number 8, the violet will have more blue to it because I'm nearer the blue side. And you'll see the difference straight away. I'm going to speed up a bit, you carry on, and then I've got it all done for the recording so that you can always reference the recording as well. And when you first do this, it's, you know, it's a little bit sort of taxing a thing, but when you put it on the paper, you start to see what a little bit of another colour added to it does to it. And you know, we don't need to just use the colours on their own. We've got to understand how you mix them to make a slightly different shade of colour. And in order for you to be successful with watercolour, you need to get this under your belt right at the beginning. You're not really going to paint much without understanding how to mix colours first. and then you do it with a lot more confidence. And you're more likely to stick to it. Oops, I just dogged here. Oh, I can't do anything here, to be honest with you. That's it, isn't it? There we go. Oops. Okay, so I'm getting to my greens now. So for the green, I need yellow and blue, which is going to be in number 11. We want a little bit of yellow, and a tiny bit of blue. It's always the lightest colour first, I find. And then you can get the idea of what it looks like. So you want a regular green, as we would call it, in number 11. I just want to spin this around because it's easier for me to get to this angle. In the number 11 box. With the green. Okay, and then as I get to number 9, I need to add more blue to the green. So I'll get a bluey green. And when I get to the yellow side, I add more yellow to it. So I've already got this one ready. So I'm going to put this one in first. Doesn't matter which way you do it. Because I'm already here. I'm just going to start off here. This is more of a yellow-green. So you should be able to tell where you are by the positioning of your wheel, okay? So as soon as you're next to one colour and you're doing the, oops, I need to spin this for this. I just stopped in it again. And I'm on my final colour, which is the blue-green. Oh, look at this. Really nice dark green, nice bright green. But don't worry if you're not keeping up with me, I've recorded it. So at least then you can take your time and do this, but at least I've got a recording of it for you. Ooh. Last one. For me, anyway. It won't be for you, but don't worry. How good was that for timing? So, how cool is that? Right, I'm going to stop the recording.